curious, slightly hushed tone. Ancient texts like the biblical book of Proverbs have been pored over, translated, and debated by scholars for thousands of years. They serve as foundational documents, preserved as guides for navigating the social and moral complexities of daily life. So it's surprising to flip through these pages and find a blatant contradiction. Look at Proverbs chapter 26, verse 4. It gives a very specific command. Do not answer fools according to their folly, or you will be a fool yourself. That seems clear enough. But then you read the very next sentence. Verse 5 says, answer fools according to their folly, or they will be wise in their own eyes. If this were a legal contract, a computer algorithm, or an instruction manual, this would clearly be an unworkable mistake. You cannot have two consecutive instructions that demand the exact opposite action for the same situation. But the ancient scribes and sages who compiled this text position these conflicting commands right next to each other on purpose. By presenting two opposite rules for the same problem, the text forces us to look past the surface of the words. It suggests that wisdom isn't a rigid list of rules to be blindly applied, but a puzzle that requires us to think. Let's look at why both commands are true. If you engage with a completely irrational person, answering a fool according to their folly, you get pulled down to their level, stripping away your dignity. But if you remain silent, the fool interprets your silence as a retreat, validating their worldview and claiming a false victory. Because both outcomes carry real danger, the text relies on situational ethics. The burden of deciding which verse to follow rests entirely on you and your ability to evaluate the specific environment you're standing in. The broader wisdom tradition supports this. The book of Ecclesiastes famously notes that there is a time to keep silence and a time to speak. The correct action is always dependent on the timing and the context. True wisdom is less about pointing to a rule book and more about the situational awareness to read the room and know which tool to deploy. This ancient tension plays out every day on modern screens. Think about encountering a profoundly irrational comment from a troll on social media. If you take the bait and type out a long, reasoned response, you've fallen into the verse 4 trap. You've wasted your time fighting someone who refuses to use logic. But if you just block them or ignore the comment, you hit the verse 5 trap. The troll uses your silence to convince other readers that they won the debate because you fled. Digital spaces make this ancient tightrope walk incredibly relevant. Simply knowing the Proverbs is useless if you lack the discernment to navigate the social hazard immediately in front of you. In the 1st century, the Apostle Paul navigated this exact dilemma in Corinth. He faced a hostile challenge from boastful rivals undermining his work. Paul was caught directly between these two proverbs. He knew that boasting to defend himself was foolish, but if he stayed silent, his rivals would win over the congregation. He chose to directly answer his opponents by listing his own credentials in what is now called the fool speech. He silences them by matching their boasts, fulfilling the command of verse 5. But Paul protected his own character through irony. He used thick sarcasm to parody the very act of boasting. By mocking the concept of self-promotion while he was doing it, he fulfilled verse 4 at the same time. Paul's success was not the result of obeying a simple command. He used situational irony to thread the needle between two destructive extremes. Biblical wisdom literature is essentially theology from below, a grounded, practical discipline for everyday existence. The wisdom tradition emphasizes the slow, methodical development of a person's character. The final aim is to become the sage, the kind of person with the spiritual discernment to know exactly when, where,